Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Octavian Nadolu.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Hello, everybody. It is a great pleasure to be here again at XML Prague. This morning, I will warm you up with some XSLT and then some schematron and schematron quick fixes. And I will show you the new things that we've done on this part. So for the XSLT, I have here an overview. I'll show you the new XSLT 3.0 support and the updates that we've done, the XQuery and XPattern 3.1, some XSLT, some checks for the XSLT code that you can also improve by yourself, and the schematron update that we have right now. So for the XSLT 3.0 support, we updated the text value template support. We added also support for the initial template mode and for also for shadow attributes. So let's start with the text value templates. So in Oxygen you have built-in support to execute these text value templates if you have a 3.0 style sheet and you use the expand attribute, expand text true. And we added also content completion for text value templates, content completion to see the variables and parameters from the context, and also syntax highlighting depending on the context. And I will show you an example in Oxygen. So for the text value templates, I have here a style sheet which has a function that does a sum of two integers, and here it's also a text value template. And if I start the content completion here, you'll see the variables and parameters from the context. But if I will remove the expand text, or if I change the version of the style sheet, then it will take to black. So you'll see if something is wrong, and the content completion, of course, will not work in this case. So we'll know when it's available and where it's not. And of course, you have support to execute this and will be evaluated when you run this type of style sheet.
Is this the new version or the current version?
This is the current version.
Okay, 91.
Yes, 91 you have this. Yeah. Then for the initial template, you can define a template with this name, XSL initial template, and this will be used if you don't specify an input, an XML input. So you can run a style sheet. Have here an example with the initial template, which has this name on a template, and if I define a scenario and I don't specify here an XML, automatically the initial template will be used when you apply the transformation. It will be executed the content of the template. So if you don't want to specify an input, you can just use this name for your template. Of course, you can also specify a template with name. This is an older way to do it. You can have a template that has a name, and in the transformation, you can specify in the configuration the name that will be used as the start template. And it's similar when you run it, we run this template. So you can use also this old way. Next, for the shadow attributes, we added content completion support and also documentation to see what each attribute does. And I have here a simple example with some shadow attributes for the method. But if I insert here an underline, then I'll get all the shadow attributes that can be inserted in this place. And also you have documentation, so you can easily see what the attribute does. Next, the XPattern XQuery 3.1. So we have validation, we have support to execute XPattern XQuery 3.1, but we also updated the maps, the arrays, the lookup operator. We updated the syntax highlight for those in also on the execution part. And I have here some examples with some XSL that has XPath 3.1 inside, so has some maps, and we see that we have nested maps, and the syntax highlight works very well also when you have nested maps. And here we have some queries that will take the second array value, or here the fourth item from this array, or here on the bottom you can select from a map, for example, the first value, so the first name. Or here we have a simple operator that will concatenate ID in the front of the names. And I can also run this example, and we can see that, for example, here we have for each name an ID added. For the query, here I get the names from this map, the first names, or maybe a more complex one like from the books map, which is the one from here, the variable from here. We get the book title, so we can select the book title, which is this one. So we can do a lot of things with the new operators. Then for the XSLT code checks, we've added in 19 and 19.1 some checks for the XSLT, are like quality assurance checks, best practices that we got feedback from, or documentation if you want to make sure that your style sheet it's well documented. These are available in the XSLT framework, so you can find them in the XSLT framework directory, and you can update it as you want. You can change it, you can customize it for your needs, and you don't need to. You can also send us feedback. You can send, okay, this one it's not okay. Maybe you can add other rules for the XSLT. And I will show you some examples of such rules. For example, we have this XSLT code quality assurance that will check if in an XSL attribute you have a variable defined like this, which is invalid because will not be executed. So we present a warning when this type of code appears, and we provide also some fixes to insert the value of the variables, or to insert a text value template if it's a 3.0 style sheet. And I will show you an example. Let's close this. So I have this quality assurance check. Here I have an attribute, and I have this problem that I refer the ID inside, which is an already defined variable. So I can just say, okay, use a text value template for ID to be executed, evaluated. And because I have a 3.0 style sheet, you'll use a text value template. If I will change this in a 2.0 style sheet or 1.0, then the quick fix will be to insert an XSL value instead of a text value template. But of course you can customize this for your needs, so you can change it. For the best practices checks, we have some rules like this one that we'll see if in an XPath expression you are referring some element names that are similar with the variables from the context. So this is a common mistake that users does, and it happens that they don't know what happens, and we can present also a warning. For example, here a lang element is used, but possible that the user wants to use the variable language from the context. So we determine if in the context is a variable or a parameter with the same name, and we present this warning. And also for a text value templates is a similar case. Let me show you an example. So we see that here I have a lang parameter, and I use it here as a template. So even I correct it by using the parameter, or maybe I change the name of the parameter because I could make mistakes when I write the XSLT code. Next, for the documentation. So if you have a style sheet that has documentation, then we automatically enforce some rules that will check if all the parameters, all the functions are documented, and if there is a missing documentation for a parameter, or there is a parameter documented but it's missing in the template or function, then we'll present some warnings and also some fixes that will help you to solve these problems. And let me show you some examples with some documentation. So I have here a style sheet that contains some functions and parameters, and for example this function is not documented, so someone maybe forgot, and you can easily add the documentation and just insert the content for each parameter. Then if some parameters are not documented, then you can select to add the documentation for these parameters. And for the templates it's similar, so if you have a template with name, you'll see the same fix to insert the documentation. And here I have some parameters that are documented, but in the template someone just removed them, so the documentation is somehow deprecated. So I can choose to delete the content that is not important anymore. We also improved the refactoring support, so now you can extract, for example, functions directly from an XPath expression. If you want to make a quick refactoring and reuse some content from an XPath expression, or you can use also the support to extract template, which we improved to detect better the parameters from the context and provide it in the call template. We added also a new refactoring action that will allow you to convert multiple ifs, maybe in choose clauses, that will allow you to refactor the content. And I will show you some examples for this one too. So I have these refactoring actions here, and I have here a function, and I have an XPath expression here, and I want to reuse this part. Just select it, and I use refactoring and extract function, and I'll set the name of the function, let's say sum, and automatically you see that a function is created, the parameters from the context are passed, and the content that I selected it's added here. So you can easily refactor content very easily. Then if you want to extract some content, maybe you want to use this in a new template, and just make sure that it's the modules are made as you want. You can use also this extract template refactoring action and say new mode, I don't know, and we see that a call template is used, and the new template is added here in the bottom after the current one, and the parameters that are used in the context are passed to the new template. You can also preview the modification before you accept it. So if you say extract template, you can say you want to preview what changed, and we see that the new template is added here, and in the current template we see that the variables that I selected are replaced with a call template. And for the choose refactoring action, if you select one or more XSLF instructions, then you can just say refactoring and convert if in choose, and you'll have it like this. So it's easy when you write code to do that. And of course you have you can do it also you can convert also choose in if, and automatically you can have the if clauses. We have a lot of refactoring actions added here, a link in my presentation, so you can check all of them. Maybe they're on our user manual with extract templates, functions, create local variables, create style sheets. There are also examples here, so you can also check this link if you want to see all the refactoring actions. Next, we added a new tool that will compile a style sheet and will generate a style sheet export file. This can be done even for Saxon.js or EE or PE, so depending on your needs. And this is available in the tools menu. And it's compile XSLT style sheet for Saxon. And here you need to provide the XSL URL, and you'll get the exported style sheet exported file, and you can choose for which processor you want to use it. And I have here a simple example. Just remove because I already compiled it. So I have here an HTML file that uses a style sheet, a compiled version of a style sheet. And if I open this in the browser, it will look like this. So you don't have any interaction. But if I will compile the books XSL, and I will generate the compiled style sheet, this will be used in our HTML file. You see that it's referred here, and if I refresh this page, you will get also some interaction that is provided by the compiled version of the style sheet. Next, we also updated the debugger perspective. So now you can have editors added on different monitors if you want, or split it in different ways, and the perspective layout will be saved. So each time when you switch to debugger, you can configure the debugger perspective as you want. And you have also an option if you want to split them horizontal or vertical. We had some feedback regarding how the debugging is done, and we made these changes. And I will show you a small example. So let's open some files here. If I switch to the debugger perspective, I could, for example, take one of the files and move it on other monitor. I don't have space here, but anyway. And then if I change the perspective, nothing will be changed in the editor perspective. And if I go back to the debugger perspective, this will be like I set. So it's easier to do the debugging. And in the preference page, there is a debugger option page that will allow you to set the debugger layout vertical or horizontal. So if you like, you can configure to be by default vertical or as you need. And similarly, it's for the xquery. So also the xquery debugging can be done in this way. For the section update, so in 19.1 we had this 9.7 update, and we made also an add-on, so you can use it. You can use in 19.1 also the 9.805 section. We want to update also for the 20, the new version that came 2 days ago, I think, and we started to update it to have it also in Oxygen 20. And I think that's all. If you have questions regarding the presentation or something that is missing in in our support. Yes?
Your refactoring sample that extracts a function. Maybe you can go to your sample.
Yes.
You extracted a variable that had a type, and the function you were extracting, the parameter has no type.
You said
exactly. That you use the variable depth, and also indent spaces, and if you extract a function, then you have parameters, and the parameters have no as attribute. I think this is
this would be. I will add a note for this. Thank you, Patrick. So if there are no questions, then I'll go to the next presentation. This will be about the Schematron update and Schematron quick fixes.
Are you going to make these presentations available?
Yes, we'll add it on the on our page where is the conference program and so on. After there will be some videos and also